Good morning, everybody. I am recording this bright and early on a Sunday when it's quiet in the house, and I have the opportunity to think a little clearly. So I am putting this intro together this week for my discussion with Ben Williams. Ben is a local guy. He's out of central New York, in between Rochester. He's a Wayne County boy. I guess I'll just leave it at that. Ben's big into whitetail habitat. He's got a passion for deer hunting and deer in general. So we get into discussing his background, what he went to school for, what some of his aspirations are, what he's doing with Old Tin Cup. He's very involved in his local QDMA branch in the Northern Finger Lakes. So we touch on that a little bit, and we tell a few deer hunting stories on top of all that, of course. So fun discussion coming up with Ben. But first, just a quick update. This is the last week of the BHA Learn to Hunt series that the New York chapter here has been putting on each Thursday night throughout the month of September. So this last week is going to be talking about what you do once you have that animal on the ground. So for both field processing and bringing it home and butchering. So I know we've got a great group of panelists for this week. I myself will not be participating. I did the last 2 weeks, and it was very fun and rewarding to share some of my experience and insight on things throughout the process of getting out there and killing an animal. So it's been very fun. If you haven't had a chance to see them, it's okay if you don't make it to the live event. The video does stay up on the New York chapter Facebook page for backcountry hunters and anglers, so you can search that on Facebook and join up to that group. I strongly encourage it, and if you're interested, even purchase a membership to join the team, as I think 2021 will be a great year for us as we're able to get out and start doing things again in public. So check that out. The videos are also available on YouTube. So if you're a YouTuber, you can go to Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, their YouTube page, and there's a playlist for the New York chapter. So check all that out. I will not be participating this week because I'm going bear hunting. So end of this week, it's that time. The Harveys are going up north, and we're going to chase around bears and cause some trouble in the big woods. So we're heading out to get up there in the mountains this upcoming weekend, and Brian and Danny and I are going to go back in and camp for a couple nights and see if we can't get into them a little bit. That's something we haven't done as a family. Nobody's ever tent camped and stayed in there. We typically just go in, hunt for the day, walk in during the day, come out at night, and then just causes a lot of travel and a lot of downtime where you're not actually hunting. So Brian and Danny and I are hoping that maybe spending a little bit more time in the woods, especially in those the last hour of light, that we'll have maybe some good opportunity to put a bear on the ground. I've seen a lot of pictures on Facebook this year, maybe more than I've ever seen, but maybe it's just because I'm paying more attention. But it seems like there has been quite a few good bears hitting the ground across New York State so far in this early season, down in the Catskills and up in the Adirondacks. So I'm excited to get out there myself and see what's going on. I've mentioned how my uncle Tim saw some good sign up there and seen some bears a couple weekends ago. So fingers crossed that next weekend they'll still be in there, and somebody will get an opportunity to put a nice big old New York black bear on the ground. So we got that coming up. We'll be doing some podcasts from camp. So we should have a bunch of content to come out of that. So I'm looking forward to sharing that experience with you all. We finally got the name nailed down for the beer. So that is going to be the Double Drop Tine IPA. That name was given to us by Kevin Stewart. So congratulations, Kevin, and thank you for your participation and following along with us here at Pertnear Outdoors. So what we're going to do is the proceeds from that, as I mentioned, are going to go to QDMA and to the Venison Donation Coalition, a couple of good organizations that are deer-minded, deer-focused, and support the community. The Venison Donation Coalition is one that I kind of knew about, but I didn't know too much about. It's kind of like one of those things where you saw the logo and you knew about it, but you never really looked into it. So the more I've looked into that, the more it speaks so much to us here at Pertnear Outdoors, and our hashtag feeding them kind of pairs right up with what the Venison Coalition's all about. So I'm actually have a podcast scheduled to do with Greg First, who's the CEO there, he lives down in Steuben County, so I'll be getting together with him here in a few weeks to have him explain what the program does, what they do to help support local food banks and put good, healthy protein on the table for people. So a couple of great organizations that we're really happy to be able to support here. So we'll be rolling the beer out on the 30th of September, so about a week and a half from now, at Windy Brew. So we'll be there from 5 to 8 p.m. Obviously, hours are a little bit tighter now because of everything, all the regulations, but they do have plenty of space as long as it's not freezing cold and snowing, which I don't suspect it will be. They've got a nice big tent outside so everybody can space out, and we can have a good time there. So we'll be there 5 to 8 p.m. Everybody's invited. If you are local, you want to come out, that'd be fantastic. If you're not able to make it and you'd like to get some beer, we're going to be selling 4-packs of the beer, and with that, part of the purchase of that will go to the proceeds to those two organizations. But we've got 75 gallons roughly, so I don't suppose we'll go through it all in the first night. If we do, we had a damn good time. But if you aren't going to be able to make it and you would like to get your hands on a 4-pack, especially if you're local here, we'd be happy to make arrangements to purchase that for you, or you can send us a Venmo. I'll probably set a Venmo account up, but you can just send us a message on Instagram or Facebook and let us know you want it, and we'll figure out the logistics from there. But we're going to do some door prizes there as well. I've been in touch with folks from both organizations. They're going to donate some hats and shirts and stuff like that to put something together, and I think we'll put a little prize pack together too, and have a little like 50-50, but I guess it'll just be like door prize raffle. So bring a few dollars extra if you'd like to participate in that, and all those proceeds will go directly to those organizations. So thank you again for everyone's support on that. Windy Brew has been awesome to help us out there, and really excited to do this fall. It's good stuff. So lastly, and then we'll let this thing roll as we are. This is the last, I guess I got one more podcast before deer season officially kicks off here, but we are going to be bringing back Breeding Radio this year. So I'm excited for that. I think that's going to be a big deal for us. We got a lot of people we've connected with over the last year around New York, and we should have some great kill stories this year again. So if you're new to us and don't know what that is, Breeding Radio is kind of our spinoff on Rut Radio, or any of those popular podcasts out there that have kind of a widespread rut update. We're doing something right here at home. So last year we started doing this back, probably it was the middle of October, and we did an episode all the way through towards the end of November, and got local people on who had success the weekend prior, told their story, what happened, and it was just, we really enjoyed it, and we did it throughout turkey season as well. So we'll be doing the same thing here with deer season coming up. So if you're interested in participating in that, basically, if you have success and you want to share your story, just hit us up, and we'll coordinate getting on the phone, or if you're local here and we can sit down quick and face-to-face, we can try to make that happen. But a lot of big things coming. Deer season's on the horizon. We can smell it, and can't wait. So everybody have a great week. Thank you for all the support. Check out Ben Williams on his social media channels, and make sure to like and subscribe to the podcast, and help us let this thing keep growing. So thank you so much. Have a great week. Keep feeding them.
Hello.
Yeah, that's your
Yeah.
name.
Squirrels got me.
Big Jim.
Yeah.
Really, 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 really cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
That's good that you think that of it, because that's what deer hunting typically is cold and fun.
Yesterday morning, I'm glassing up on the pass, and I see these deer moving, and I'm like, ooh, there's deer moving. All of a sudden, I just see this person just head down, just hauling ass, wearing shorts and a t-shirt with a pack on. And I'm like, is that Tard? My dad always talks about floating through the woods like the autumn breeze.
So Robert's
when you're
the ghost, and that's
275
Tard.
pounds, I don't know how you do that, but
The Freightliner. It's just like a creeper. You're just kind of up in the corner watching what's going on down there.
yeah.
He's
like,
he's up there slapping, pissing all over everything.
is it warm yet?
How did you know the name of the actor?
That's I know.
Why did you say his name?
Hervé Villachez. Remember this?
You know what Pertnear means.
If you know what Pertnear means and you live in America, you're a redneck too.
Welcome to the Log Talk Podcast, brought to you by Pertnear Outdoors. But
yeah, well, what is?
Nothing's cheap anymore. The bush is open, so the conversation just started. Ben Williams on the podcast. How are you?
Good. How are yourself?
I'm good. It's the end of the day. Sitting down here to talk a little deer hunting.
Yep.
Food plots, what you've got going on, who you are. So thanks for having me to your home here.
Yeah, no problem.
So I just basically just this conversation, you and I we connected through social media and through your platform and my platform. So if you want to kind of talk a little bit about, introduce yourself to anybody who doesn't know who you are, where you're from, what you've got going on in your let's not focus too much on QDMA at this point because that'll be a whole separate conversation.
Gotcha.
But kind of what you're doing with your own personal stuff.
Yeah, so I grew up in Clyde, New York, which is right smack dab as the crow flies between Syracuse and Rochester, just north of the thruway there. Grew up hunting, fishing, loving all that. Followed that into college, went to Finger Lakes Community College, grabbed a couple degrees from there, competed on the timber sports team in college, and then really kind of fell into QDMA in my last year of college there at Finger Lakes, my third year for my second degree. And that's when I found the deer stewardship course. I'd never even heard of QDMA before that. I mean, we'd always managed and done food plots and everything like that, but that was all new to me at that point. And that was like 2013 at this point, or 12, something like that. So when I found that organization and then got deeper rooted into it that way, and then worked seasonally with DEC for a couple years, mostly doing the giant hogweed control team. That kind of got my foot in the door with the DEC, but then it's hard to find full-time permanent work there. Seems like everybody there is pretty much a lifer. So I started doing a little bit of consulting on the side, and that's where I started doing my habitat consulting, and just kind of grew that over the last 6 or 7 years now. I forget. It all kind of blurs together. But, I've been doing that. Just got my real estate license, and that's how I heard about you guys. I was out on there at Corey's property, helping him with his habitat set up down there at his place, and he mentioned you guys in the log talk, and that's when I found you guys. And I guess after buying a house and getting engaged and all that stuff, I guess that's where we're at now.
Yeah, that's awesome. A lot of stuff going on there.
Busy.
Yeah, life is certainly busy right now. No doubt about that.
Mm-hmm.
So what were your degrees at Finger Lakes?
Degree in natural resources, and then they came out with the fishery and wildlife degree, and I grabbed that. I wanted to stay for another year to grab that second degree.
Nice.
Was going to go get my bachelor's. I was thinking Cobble Skill, Paul Smith, CSF, something like that. And I just like being out in the woods or out in the field too much to go back to school. It seemed like that, and I walked out of there with no debt. I paid and worked through college, so I walked out with no student loans. So
there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah. What was your experience at FLCC? You felt like you got a pretty good education there, and
yeah, I never left.
Yeah, you still work there, correct?
I still work there. Yeah, it's my full-time job.
So you better say you liked it.
My 6 to 2:30 job, but I've been there 5 years now at the college. So time, like I said, just kind of flies. So I work there as a groundskeeper. It's really nice. It's a great atmosphere, great place. It's a little different nowadays with everything going on, but I definitely love my job there for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I went to Finger Lakes for one semester, as did my brother, and I was actually just having this conversation with somebody today that it was like one of the best semesters. I kind of wish I would have done all 2 years of my first 2 years of school there for my associates. I wish I would have done that just for the value in the school. It was close to home. I commuted. I didn't have the room and board.
Yep.
So for that one semester, it was just great. So anybody out there who's, especially nowadays with everything that's going on with this virus, it's like, if you got the opportunity to go and, have a simpler education, a little bit less expensive, get your feet on the ground, get those base courses or the associate's degree under your belt, and
Yep.
figure out whether you want to go anywhere or not. Like your example is perfectly right there, that it didn't make a ton of sense to you. You knew you wanted to be out in the field and doing work and in the woods and didn't want to go back to school, where you lock yourself in at one of these bigger schools, or you're paying more, you're invested, you're like, well, I got to finish this bachelor's now, and
Right.
end up walking out of there with enough debt that you could own a house,
Well, yeah, and I mean that there's different levels to all of it. I mean, I have friends that took that associate's fisheries degree, and he's working out for the Idaho Fish and Game Department. I was one of his groomsmen at his wedding. He's going to be one of my groomsmen at my wedding too. And he got a job right out with his associates out of state because they don't have as much of a demand for bachelor's and master's types positions, and that's what I kind of ran into with the New York State DEC, which there's nothing wrong with that. And if that's the career goal you want to go with, getting more of an education, bachelor's, master's, or a doctorate, it's definitely a great stepping stone. Most of the professors are actually Finger Lakes grads, which is the crazy thing about
That's
it.
cool.
It's a very in-house kind of place, which is really cool. That they know what you're going through. They were literally there walking the same place as you were. But yeah, no, I definitely would recommend if anybody's thinking about it, at least go there. The great thing that I really liked about my time at Finger Lakes was all the hands-on courses.
Yeah.
Like I took black bear management where you went and did den sampling and stuff like that. Got your cute Facebook picture with the cubs and all that. But everything from spawning walleye to creek sampling and with electrofishing on Honeoye Lake, Canandaigua Lake. I mean, you name it. You got your hands dipped into a little bit of everything.
Where did you do some of the black bear stuff?
Mostly Steuben County. It was Region 8, most of it. So
who's
they're
the
all over.
biologist down there? Is that
It would have been Jeb is the bear biologist, Jeb McConnell.
okay?
Yeah, he's a Region 8 bear biologist. I forget what the other gentleman's name used to be.
Was it Kirsch? Was the last name?
Oh, Art Kirsch. Yeah,
Art
he was
Kirsch.
one of the Region 8 biologists. But Jeb is the main bear guy, so to speak.
Because I remember when I was
Finger
thinking,
Lakes grad too.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I remember when I was in high school, you kind of did like your ride-alongs or your little what would you call those?
Shadowing.
Like,
or whatever. Yep.
And that was one of the things I was interested in. So somehow, when we were kids, I should ask my dad how we ever got hooked up doing it, but I never went on one of the den checks. My brother and my dad went multiple years in a row, going on den checks down to. I think it was in the Steuben County area. There seems to be a lot of that stuff going on, like South Dansville.
Yeah, there's a
lot
lot of bear down there too.
But I did a ride along, and that was such a cool experience. I met up with a guy. It was like down near Canaseraga, and we met up and went for a ride. And he had his big radio antenna.
Yep.
And we were trying to locate a bear, and we did. And we went up in the woods to try to get close to it, and we ended up jumping it, and it took off running. But it was just a cool experience to go ride along with a DEC officer or a biologist, whatever. I don't remember what exactly his position was, but he was a bear biologist of some sort. So it was cool. It's a really interesting field to get into. Like you said, it is kind of there's only so many jobs of some of those coveted jobs to get into, but you kind of get your name out there, and you never know when the opportunity. You're young, there's still time and still opportunity for those things to come around.
Oh yeah, and life always throws you curveballs.
Yeah, no doubt it does. So you mentioned your business that you have with Old Tin Cup. Is that's your kind of habitat business that you have?
Yep.
So talk a little bit about that, what you're doing there.
So it's actually been a little bit different this year. I actually had a big trip to PA planned up, and had all but one of the 4 cancel on me, and that was going to be I think it was like a 5-day trip I had planned out for it. And I just told the guy, I said, we'll figure it back out next year and, schedule it in, because there's no sense in, charging travel 4 different ways. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd rather lump it all together if I got to go out of state like that. But other than that, it seems like I've gotten more and more requests for the actual consulting side of it rather than the labor side of it. In the beginning, there was a lot of people that wanted, timber cutting done and stuff like that, bedding areas cut in, even help, putting up stands, stuff like that. But I get more enjoyment out of the consulting of it and working with the person and helping them grow with it. And I think they get more bang for their buck with that rather than just, here's the plan, good luck.
Yeah.
I like having the feedback and the constant questions and stuff like that because, and I'll be right honest with you, I'm never stopped learning.
Yeah.
I mean, every property you go to, you're going to learn something. Everybody you talk to, you're going to learn something. I mean, I go to cover crop seminars, and I'm sitting there with a bunch of farmers, and they're like, well, what do you do? Where's your farm? How big? I'm like, well, I kind of grow
I got
stuff
some
for the deer to
donkeys
eat.
and
Well,
some
yeah.
chickens and yeah.
But no, I grow stuff for the deer to eat. Oh, you're one of them guys.
Yeah.
But no, I love it. It's something that if I can make a full-time career out of it one day, that'd be, great or whatnot. But I do it just really because I got into it because it was something that I saw I could see myself doing. People asked me about, coming out and helping them lay out and design stuff. And then, like I said, I was kind of between jobs in the off season when I wasn't working for the DEC seasonally, and I was like, well, I'll try this consulting thing, and it's gotten a lot farther than I thought it was going to go. And the initial thing of it, I had no idea. I mean, all the different consultants you hear of online and Facebook and all that stuff, and it's really, kind of cool that, I've worked with a bunch of them on properties, QDMA field days mostly, and stuff like that, guys from all over the country, and it's really cool that you can just relate to everybody on a personal level that way.
Yeah. And I think it's cool that there's a few of you, like John Teeter with Whitetail Landscapes and what you're doing with Old Tin Cup, like local guys.
Yep.
And like guys that are very approachable and very easy to just, to have conversations with. And I think you guys are taking the approach of like, let's work together on this. And because what you just said is so true, that if you as a landowner are not invested into it with your time as well as your money, like the chances of actually continuing to follow through with that plan on your property.
Right.
Like if somebody just comes in and does something for you and then you just sit back and wait for your 4-year-old bucks to start showing up, like
right.
You have to maintain that. It's always changing.
Yeah,
so.
and for some people, that's what they want.
Right.
And that's the thing with consulting is everybody wants it a little bit different. But the one thing I don't do, and I'll never find myself doing it, is like an over-the-phone consult or like an online consult. I do a lot of my homework, I call it, before I get to a property. Looking at soils, looking at wetlands, if there's wetlands on the property, property borders, neighbors, how long they've owned the property, history like that. I have a whole questionnaire I send out before I come out to property. And you can't give somebody an over-the-phone consult. And I would really, if that's my one piece of advice, I would discourage that from anybody thinking about that. Yeah, you can pick some stuff apart, but without getting boots on the ground, people could say they got a woods, but what is it? Is it, Maple Beach? Is it, a red oak hickory forest? I mean, what are you looking at?
Yeah,
So,
and you can't tell that from satellite imagery in most parts. You can pick out some things, but not everything.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of that, and it's getting a little bit late in the summer for doing a whole lot, food plot wise and land management wise. I don't think it's the time of year. What's your thoughts on that? I mean, right now, if you're a landowner, are you messing around with anything, or are you kind of at this point, you've got what you've got, start figuring out how you're going to hunt it?
I planted yesterday.
Did you? Well, you can still, it's not too late to plant some late season stuff, right?
Yeah, and right now it was a big, it was 2 weeks ago. It was like, whatever that was. I think that was like August.
Like the 4th, 5th, in that range.
The 9th, something like that. I planted around the 9th, I want to say. I'd have to check my book. 8th and 9th. I know. Now I know. It's the 8th and 9th I planted. And if you've been anywhere in New York, we've had no rain since then.
Yeah.
So I had very poor germination. I know my beans and oats I put in at that time weren't going to make. And obviously, and the crows have been very happy on my trail cameras by the looks of it, because they've just been picking it up. Oh, yeah, picking it apart. I did have a little germination on my purple top, my radish, and there's some hard seed there where they'll survive through. But I went over the top of everything with wheat and oats, or wheat and rye rather. Just to save it to leave forage in the field, because I can't have bare dirt.
Yeah. Do you do any fall seedings, like stuff that you plant in the fall for the spring, for it to come up in the spring?
Yeah, I mean, anything like that wheat and that rye, that good solid grain base. And shoot, we've been putting in rye in our plots since 99 was our first, 99 or 2000. It was right in that ballpark. Me and my dad were talking about that the other day. We did our first food plot was a winter wheat food plot. Why? Because it was cheap and we could plant it with our lawnmower.
Yeah.
So, and it's come a long way since then, but I've actually moved away from a lot of the tillage stuff lately. It's a lot better for the soil. You have a lot better organic matter in it. and it's just one of them things where a lot of guys don't have big tractors and $20,000 drills to be out planting plots. And I mean, you can get some through some of the local soil and water districts have some that you can rent, but getting them to line up with your planting and then having a tractor to pull it just isn't in
There's
most
just
guys'
so
ballpark.
many things to line up to make that happen.
Yep.
So talk a little about what are you using equipment-wise to do that with your, not tilling up the ground. What are you using?
So most of our stuff this year, because we have a tractor, we have like a 30-something horse, whatever International 584 is. That's been mostly mowing this year. We had a lot of abandoned pasture ground that we were mowing. We mow every year, but a farmer's going to take it over and actually put a crop to it now, so we had to mow it off for him. So that's where that's been the majority of the time this year. So the only thing I used that for was some light disking I did on a couple fields, but and that was only, I think, an acre and a half worth that I did of the 12 I planted this year. So, and the rest of it was all planted with either shoulder seeder or the little spreader I did all the rye and wheat with yesterday was borrowed from a buddy of mine, and that was just with a little Honda 4Trax, or Honda, whatever it is. Not a 4Trax because that's Honda, but it's a Suzuki Quad Runner.
Yeah.
Quad Runner 250. 1990 something.
Just pulling the spreader, or is it mounted on the
mounted spreader?
Yeah.
And then that just pulls a 5-foot cultipacker, similar to one of the ones.
I saw that.
Yeah, I picked those up the other day.
Where
for
did you get
parts.
those?
A buddy of mine had them.
No shit.
Yeah, he saw that I was selling. We sold a 9-footer because we don't really use the 9-footer too much anymore because that's if we got to pull it out on the tractor because that 4-wheeler it'll pull it. Don't
But
get
it's
me wrong.
horsing.
Oh, it's hard on it,
Yeah.
especially that little 250.
Yeah.
Those 5-foot are a lot better, and you can get them into a lot tighter spaces. And
where do you find? Where are you coming across them, or do you not want to share your sources?
Hedgerows.
Yeah.
I mean, especially springtime. I'll tell my secrets. It's not really a secret if you just start looking for it. A lot of the farm equipment and stuff like that, we move a fair amount of it. My dad does discs, drags, cultipackers, back blades, slip buckets, you name it. A lot of them are hedgerow pickups. That of course find who owns the property.
Just farmers aren't using that equipment anymore and ends up sitting there.
Yeah, or it got parked there 40 years ago, and that's where it's sat ever since. I mean,
yeah, because those look like some old cultipackers you got out there.
Yeah, those are old. I think they're Olivers. I want to say, or no, they're Brillins. Those ones are Brillins. The one I have is an Oliver.
That's
the
cool.
one that I was using this year. Those are 2 Brillin ones. But yeah, I'll probably piece them up and make one really good one, keep the rest for parts, or maybe sell one of them. And because I have 3 5-footers, I don't really need 3 5-footers right now. But
right.
And then we have like a really nice 10-foot Brillin, and I think we still have one more 9-footer that my dad's looking to sell. But
I think it might be in the market.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need something bad because we're in the process. I don't know if you've been listening along with kind of our journey, but my in-laws' farm, we don't have the equipment anymore because they sold the farm.
Right.
We still have our hunting land, which we have our food plots on, but that stuff all used to just get planted with all the other corn and soybeans.
Big stuff.
So now we're trying to figure that out, and so we just borrowed a regular old roller to crimp, roll down the buckwheat that Dallas planted, and that worked pretty well.
Yep.
But I think having a cultipacker would work really nice.
Yeah,
to do different things.
Are you working with a tractor or?
We have a couple different tractors.
Yeah, I thought so. I thought so. A couple compact tractors.
We have one. Well, up at camp we have a Kubota. I don't know how many horse it is, but that thing it's a decent tractor.
Oh yeah.
It's mid-size, whatever those mid-size Kubotas is.
These are like high 20s or something like
that.
Yeah, 28.
But out at the farm, we've got a couple old John Deere. I think we got a 4020 and a, I don't know, 4010 or I don't know what the other one is. I'm horrible with that stuff.
Right.
But I know one of them's a 4020 because that's like a big deal, I guess. So we have that, and then we've also got a big Massey loader tractor that we can still use to do whatever we got to do around the farm. So that's where we're looking for something along those lines that we can use to roll the stuff in, because our goal is to just stop tilling and just constantly have something growing and then knocking that down and killing it. And is that what you would use that? I mean, or are you using that cultipacker to roll stuff in?
Roll seeds in. And roll, like in your situation, like you said, with the buckwheat. I mean, obviously you can do that for sure. And I even actually just did a YouTube video on it on my channel, my Old Tin Cup channel. I called it, to spray or not to spray. and I talked about a field because a lot of people have been getting after me about using chemicals and stuff like that. And I haven't made the jump to buy or build a crimper or something along that line. So chemicals are a necessary evil. I mean, an evil with quotation marks with it.
Right.
But I did a plot with no chemical control whatsoever. And all I did was just mow it off once and broadcast it into it. And then I did it right next to a food plot, and I sprayed that initially and then broadcasted and packed and rolled at the same rate of 50 pounds per acre of buckwheat. And I look at it in my video, and you can see in the plot without any chemical control, there's very little buckwheat. There's just too much weed competition for it, and it just doesn't work. And in no means would you be able to roll that over like you can in the other plot.
Right.
So, and that's just waiting for, I was going to maybe go try to get something done between the rain today for planting, but I'll maybe get after it tomorrow. We'll see how the weather shakes out the next couple of days to get some clover and probably winter wheat on that rest of that buckwheat. The rest of the stuff this year. The stuff I haven't planted yet is going to go into a clover mix for going into next year right now.
Yeah.
But
that buckwheat that's the first time we've ever planted that, and that stuff was awesome. It was like 5 feet tall and thicker than thick. It was amazing.
Right.
And that stuff rolled down really nice. I'm excited to see what comes up that we, how the stuff comes up from underneath it, because I think we laid down a perfect bed for that stuff to grow up through.
Yeah, especially when you get into that 4 or 5 foot range with that buckwheat. I mean, that's just wicked tall. And like you said, it rolls over like a dream. It does make a really cool time-lapse video.
Oh, I bet. I should have done that.
If you think about it next year, yeah, I shot 2 fields we did of the buckwheat. And the problem is once you get around the 3 foot to 2 foot stuff, poor conditions, or has quite a bit of weed competition, didn't get a good initial kill with the herbicide on it. Or I had a lot of turkeys. I have had that before too, where they've plagued out some of my buckwheat plots.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the turkeys love that, right?
Oh yeah. Yep. So the problem is when you get thinner like that, you don't get that good roll down. If you get 4 or 5 foot tall, you roll it over one way and then cross hatch it with a cultipacker, it'll kill it dead.
No, because you get on the cultipacker, you got the little veins, kind of whatever, and it'll cut.
It almost
right
acts
through
like a crimper.
Yeah.
In a way.
When you're going across it, you lay it down and then you come across it. That's a great point.
Yep.
So in that situation, you really wouldn't have to use herbicide if you had a very good stand of buckwheat. Yeah.
Unless you have problem weeds, like a couple of them had nut sedge in them, so they got spot sprayed or hand pulled, stuff like that.
Yeah.
A couple other plots might have, pigweed's another one I see a lot in food plots. So, yeah, just problem weeds. That's the big thing too with herbicides and stuff. People ask me all the time, what do I spray? And it's a matter of what you're trying to kill, with the herbicide. It might not even be something you think that'll kill it. And I always refer back to a time with my dad when he went out there, because we had nut sedge in this one food plot, and still do. And it's to the point now where we had to get a sedge hammer, which I forget what the active ingredient in sedge hammer is. But he went out there with like a straight like 2,4-D, which is a broadleaf killer, and tried to spray nut sedge with it. And he's like, oh, I toasted it. I put it like 10% 2,4-D, and I sprayed it right down. And I'm just like, wow, that's a broadleaf killer. I'm not going to touch that at all.
And it didn't?
Oh, no.
No.
But yeah, no, you got to match the chemical to what you're trying to kill too is a big thing with food plots I see a lot. And, if you're doing that with the 2,4-D reference, that's going to have soil activity.
Yeah.
So that's going to be counterproductive to your germinating seeds, that you're trying to plant. So you just got to plant accordingly and read your labels. I mean, it's there for a reason. I mean, they might be a little bit tricky to look at sometimes, but if anybody has any questions with that, I'm, happy to look at labels too. So
yeah. Explain what you've got quite the video series you've been doing, following kind of like the whole A through Z thing.
Mm-hmm.
How long you been doing that? Did you just do the whole alphabet this year, or has this been like a project over the last couple of years?
Yeah, so my buddy Tyler Breen and me were throwing that out, and you want to talk about another guy you should maybe bring on the podcast to look at some of his outdoor experiences. He's filmed for.
I recognize the name.
Yeah, he's up around Rush, is where he's at, and but he's filmed for like Zinc and Avian-X and the Bass Pro Cabela's got every you name it.
So he's a photographer.
He's a photographer, videographer.
Okay.
Yep. He's definitely a good one. And we started doing that series. He was actually between jobs at the time. We started filming up a couple of them. We actually launched our own little YouTube channel called the Deer Tube for a little bit, which hasn't had probably a video on it in 2 years now. Just because he got busy with paying contracts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, and then I kind of got thinking about it and videos, and, I did some stuff like Weed of the Weeks, I called them, and Food Plot Forestry Fridays, Management Mondays. I had just trying to play with around with words and find, topics that stuck and were relevant to that time of the year, too.
Yeah.
And then I circled back to the A through, land management A to Z, and, just kind of picked a letter that was corresponding with what I had going on during that time and worked right through the alphabet. So, I might relaunch it, but it might just be I bring, and I don't do any editing with my videos. They're all straight.
Just is what it is.
Straight off the cuff, one take, maybe two, or at most.
You don't have to tell me how many takes. That's how it is with the podcast. It's like,
right.
If I told you how many times I have had to like start and stop my intros to the podcast, because I hate doing intros. I'm by myself, and it's like I sound like a freaking jackass,
Right.
So it's like,
and that's the only thing I screw up is the intro.
Is the intros, yeah. Because he's like, "Hey, how are you?" It's like, who the hell am I talking to? I don't know who I'm talking to.
Right.
It's such an awkward thing.
Yeah.
But no, it's cool what you're doing there. I think it's unique, and it's I encourage you to keep going with it because nobody else is doing it.
Yep.
And I think it's cool what we're all. I'm glad to have you on here because I think we're all kind of trying to like show what we're doing here in New York because everything that's out there for the most part is all Midwest, Western, Southern to a certain point. But like there's just a ton of stuff out there content-wise from Michigan and Illinois and Iowa, Nebraska, which that's all great. Like I love that. I consume that content.
Right.
But to me it was like there was a void here of stuff that's really relatable here in New York, and like why not share what we're doing? We have great hunting and fishing and outdoor activities in this area.
And I mean, the guys from like Hunters Creek, Antler Ice, they're New York guys. And I know those guys for sure. But like you said, there's kind of a little bit of a disconnect. Everybody talks about some of the edge Midwest states or sleeper states. New York is a huge sleeper state.
Yeah,
for big
I'd like to keep it that way.
deer and fishing included. I mean, some of the fishing we have here is world class.
It is world class, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think our deer hunting is getting to a level where it's going to start drawing some attention from people that, and it's the same thing with Pennsylvania. I think both states are really up and coming deer states because I think the population, I think they're doing a good job. We are, as hunters, doing a good job of starting to get the population levels in check, in my opinion.
Right.
And you're starting to see better buck-doe ratios. You're starting to see better bucks because there's better habitat. There's better ratios for them, so they're not having to over-compete for food and for does. So it just seems like everything's getting better around here.
Right.
I don't know about you. Like over the last few years, you seen an improvement in what you're seeing on your property and the caliber of bucks you're seeing, or?
Well, it's you get what you get out what you put into it with a lot of that stuff. But the thing I see, and I again going all over the state with stuff, is it's pocketed in a lot of ways. And you see it when you look on like Facebook groups or something like that. It's a completely different. You can get completely different levels of it. And a lot of it boils down to, like you said, habitat is the basic foundation for it.
Yeah.
I refer to it as the foundation of the house. It don't matter how many rooms are in the house if the foundation is not good underneath it.
Yeah.
So
that's a good point.
It all starts with the habitat. And it like I said, it's pocketed. There's areas that are off the charts for sure, and areas that I would stack up next to any Midwest state that I've been to on properties. And then there's other places that it takes work, and you're going to get more out of it the more you put into it with the right applications.
Right.
But
so you're pretty active in. Is there anything else you want to talk about with your some of the stuff you're doing with Old Tin Cup and that stuff?
No, I mean, if anybody wants to check out any of the stuff, you can head over to the YouTube page. I'm usually putting stuff up once or twice a week, something like that. Depends on when I can get a couple minutes between getting busy to throw something together. And then, like I said, I put it up, no edits, no nothing like that. It's what's going on that day, and usually it's up within 10, 12 hours of when I filmed it usually.
Yeah.
And then the Facebook page if you want to check that out, or like I said, I'm open to questions anytime. I get questions all the time. Food plots, stands, what do I do here, what do I do there? Hey, what do you do to come out at pro property, whatever. So I'm very open to, talking with anybody. I'm, not shy at all. And if anybody's interested in buying and selling land too, I got my real estate license, so kind of put two and two together, and it made sense for me. And yeah.
So what are you working with Corey with Future Forestry?
Yep.
Are you like a realtor for him?
Yep.
Is that what you're doing? Okay.
Yep. I'm a salesperson. Yep.
Nice. So I was always wondering what the tie was there.
Yep.
And you said you've been down to his property.
Yep.
And looked at some stuff with him.
Yep. But you guys are a stone's throw.
Yeah.
Literally.
Well, yeah. I mean, we border property lines. So
Right.
yeah, that's pretty funny. You've been down there, so you know exactly where our camp is, and it's a cool area. I'm excited about this year. I think I don't know what he's seeing, which is funny. I've gotten one trail cam picture of a buck. Period.
Mhm.
My brother, same thing. Like
Early.
we just don't get buck pictures, and we're perfectly fine with it. We get it, but it's interesting now having cell cams because you get that intel like now. Like every morning, I know what's going on up at camp and at the other places where I hunt. So it's awesome, but it just continues to like reiterate this. Our property is holding does, which is great, and the bucks, we don't know where they are because they're not anywhere near anywhere we can hunt. Right. So the areas where we can hunt, we've got cameras and we're not getting pictures of bucks.
Right.
So it kind of helps us understand better. It doesn't help us kill them, but it helps us understand that they're not there, but they're certainly there middle of October through the end of hunting season. We're seeing them. So,
right. And your property should, the closer you get to season, it should be getting better. And then even into season, it should still be going up in attractiveness.
Yeah. You're saying as a general rule of thumb, you want that as a landowner.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was actually worried this year when I had too many bucks in early this year. And that's because my one neighbor had fresh planted beans. So, they were stacked in on ours, betting on ours, going out to his big bean field. And once I started, because I didn't know he put it to beans this year, until I got looking at it from our side of the line, because you can't see the field from the road.
Yeah.
So I was like, that makes sense why I'm getting pictures of deer back here now. But, usually I'm right now scratching, like, none of the bucks other than maybe one homebody on our piece of property. We usually have one decent buck that's a homebody 365 on our piece, if not longer, if not more than one. But our pictures don't pick up till last week of September.
Yeah.
It's amazing that it jumps like a...
Immediately.
Yep.
Yeah. We're right now, I was just talking with Dallas this morning. I think we're at the end of August here. I think we're kind of in that transition period. And that's what's been really cool about having the cell cams, and we're running the Cuddy Link system on the farm. So we've got really good coverage, and we've been able to pick up the deer are doing loops, which we've kind of known that over the years, but it's been very interesting to get like nonstop everyday intel. And you can see because there's different food in different places, so the deer are doing loops. So you'll go a couple days without seeing anything, then you'll see some does that are living right there. But then you'll get your group of bucks that keep making their loop and coming through. But over the last few days, the bucks have they shut off. Like we haven't seen hardly anything for bucks. Well, okay, that's a good point too. It's hot.
I think if you look at all your pictures across the board, that's a huge thing when I'm looking at cameras. I might let them soak an extra week or go out when it's 90 degrees out, even though it's a bear, and I might pull cards. But,
because the deer aren't going to really be up on their feet those days because it's so hot.
They can't thermoregulate like we can. They don't sweat. They have to excrete everything through their mouth and their ears.
Yeah,
so,
good point.
They're just not up on their feet.
And I was thinking about too. I don't know where we're at moon wise. I just heard something the other day that made me think about the moon. But we had like crazy activity for a couple weeks there, and then all of a sudden But I'll bet you if I go back and look at it, it was probably we had a couple weeks of not so hot weather over the past 2 weeks, and we were seeing a lot of buck activity.
I bet you if you look at your pictures someday like yesterday when we dropped from like mid to upper 80s down into the 70s, that would be, if that's what we were getting, let's just say in October, if we were going to get a 15-degree temperature drop, that'd probably be the day I hunt in early October.
Yeah.
Other than that, I wouldn't. If it's going to be like straight 80s or even upper 70s, whatever, if it's consistent, I'm looking for a big drop or a big spike or shift, and especially in early October. And then you get a lot of that pushing from other properties where deer get pressured. And unless you have a deer on a food pattern, that's a no-brainer. But again, hunting them with the right conditions. Is he going to come to that clover plot on an 80-degree morning?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah, but you're gonna want to be in there because you think he's gonna be there.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good thing to be thinking about.
Yep.
I forget about temperature sometimes. You don't really think about, especially when it's warmer. Like I don't think about temperature right now. I think about temperature when it's November or late October. You're thinking like, okay, I'm watching the weather. But right now you don't think about that during the summer because you're like, well, it's hot all the time.
It's all relative.
But it is all relative. During each season, they're going to be acting really using that weather as a like a manipulator of what they're doing with their travel.
That's the same thing in the middle of the winter. Like if we're getting blasted cold right around, teens, consistently, and then we got a day that bumps up into the 20s even, that's a huge difference. And I'll hunt the side of that warm up rather than the side of the cool down. If it was late season, like gun season or something like that, muzzleloader season.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I base a lot of my hunting and the way I do that around temperature and fronts. I'm not a big moon guy, I'll admit it, but I think it affects like evening feedings and stuff like that for sure. But just for like the red moons and all that stuff that I don't understand.
Yeah, it's that you gotta have a freaking master's degree to understand that stuff.
Yeah, and you see some correlation to it, but with Charlie Alsheimer was the big moon guy forever. And Charlie was a great guy. Did
you ever have a chance to meet him?
I do miss Charlie. I
did
do miss my conversations.
You met him?
Yeah. And we've had conversations, especially when I first started doing the consulting stuff. I meet him doing shows and stuff like that, and he was definitely you could see merit to it in some ways. The only thing is not scientific peer reviewed with stuff, but just a wealth of deer research as a whole. Not necessarily as it results to the moon. We didn't see eye to eye on that or whatnot, but. Charlie was definitely a good guy and brought a lot to the table on the level of like deer research, especially in our kind of region, because he was just down in
Bath.
Yep, right.
And a lot of people don't
just
realize
outside
that
Bath.
was a local.
Yep.
It was all local stuff.
Yep.
And I remember I met him one time. My dad took my brother and I and a few of guys from our hunting group. My brother and I were young. Took us to. He had a seminar he put on at. I don't know if it was a local church or it was something.
Charlie was big.
Yeah.
Big educating in the churches and stuff. Yep.
Down in Hemlock is where it was.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was cool. I mean, those are people that you get the opportunity to meet them, and those are guys that are like they're landmarks in the whitetail world.
Yep.
I got to take a piss break.
No, that's fine, man.
Can I go water some plants somewhere?
No,
or what?
absolutely.
All right, I'm gonna hit the pause button. We'll come right
Alrighty.
back for that. Okay, we're back. I swear I didn't pee my pants. That's just rain that fell on me.
No, it opened up about the time you ran off. So I mean,
it did. we got some nice ambiance now. So if you hear that background noise or a couple of cracks of thunder, sorry but not sorry.
No, that's
raining.
perfect. Absolutely.
So we were just before we hit the resume button, want to kind of transition over into a little bit of talk about QDMA and NDA, National Deer Alliance.
Yep.
So you and I have been kind of keeping in touch over the last 2-3 weeks, and there was that big announcement of those two organizations kind of coming back together.
Yep.
So anybody who's not familiar, I guess I'll kind of let you explain it a little bit, but there was recently kind of a merger of two whitetail deer focus groups, which is seems to be a good thing for whitetail deer and deer hunters.
Right. So the NDA was formed. I was actually there at QDMA National Convention when it was formed. It was formed at one of the informational sessions. I was there down in Kentucky or whatnot when it was formed up. And NDA is more, and always has been, kind of the advocacy side for all deer organizations. So whether it was QDMA, whether it was Mule Deer Foundation, Whitetails Unlimited, I mean, all of them, kind of just supporting deer as a whole.
So that's what NDA was focused on?
Yeah, National Deer Alliance, absolutely. It was kind of a united voice and stuff like that, especially on the side where, on the legislative side and like combating issues and stuff like that. And Nick Pinizzotto, he was a great fit for that. And I think he's a really, really good fit as our new CEO or whatever of NDA QDMA. That's not going to be announced till they're expecting October, what the new official name's going to be. The only thing I can say is it sounds like the logo is going to stay the same, the buck doe silhouette that everybody's familiar with.
Yep.
And the name just hasn't been, and I don't think they even know what the new official combined name's going to be.
Yep.
But yeah, and it's going to change a lot of the ways across the board with QDMA and how stuff's been in the past. Not so much here in New York. in this region because we do so well and do so well fundraising and like generate a better net to gross than a lot of other areas. And as a whole, I guess the organization was losing money on our annual banquets we were doing every year.
Really?
Across the country. So in a lot of ways, this has brought, I think, some good changes. Unfortunately, they have had to let people go like a lot of businesses have. It's tough right now, especially for non-for-profits with not being able to get together and have banquets. And that's a main source of fundraising for like everything. Non-for-profit organization.
Yeah.
Literally, Turkey Federation, I mean, Ducks Unlimited, you name it. Actually, I think there's actually a Ducks Unlimited banquet local tonight.
Is there?
Yep.
They're doing it.
Yep.
Nice.
Yep. Social distance. They had to get a bigger space and cut the attendance down and play around with it, and it sold out like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because everybody wanted to get out and do something.
Yeah.
But so.
Yeah, that's been. We're active in NWTF, and I've never been to a QDMA banquet. I'd like to in the coming years.
Yep.
I just joined for the first time. I've never been a member, but I got to say a lot of the stuff that QDMA has been focused on over the last couple of years has been it's been really important to me, and I'm really happy to see what the focus has been. And it's kind of shifted. They still have the focus on, managing the deer herd and the quality management of that and property, but also looking at, getting the new hunter in.
Yep.
The mentor program with Field to Fork has
Yep.
been awesome, and New York State has done, they've received awards.
Leading the country.
Yeah.
100%.
You would say that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, there's other, branches and stuff throughout the country, and I'm not, trying to knock on it, but I am going to, pat New York branches on the back, Greater Rochester, Upper Hudson, those branches specifically have done a great job at it. I wish we had a little bit more flexibility this year with everything before COVID. We planned on doing a lot more of that stuff with our local branch here.
Yeah.
But ours was kind of founded around the basis with the board members and stuff for our local branch, the Northern Finger Lakes branch chapter, whatever you want to refer to it as, was always education. Where a lot of guys in our group, I think our oldest board member is 28. So it's not like the
That's
Rochester.
cool.
It's not. Yeah, it's younger guys, which is really really cool. Especially because you look at it across the board, QDMA's average membership is like 42,
Which
is the average.
It's still fairly low, but if you go to a lot of gatherings,
That's
62.
Not, yeah, exactly. And it's one of them things where it's good to see the younger people getting involved in it and looking at it, and I think it is going to be definitely good for the organization going forward. But the new hunter thing, that's huge. I mean, I talk to people a lot. My fiance works for kind of I don't know, is this politically correct, a liberal college. I talked to a couple of her coworkers, and they're like, I'd be interested in hunting. It's just I've never had the opportunity to.
Nobody in my
or
life.
nobody in their life does it.
Yeah.
Or they've never, even thought it was an option to say, hey, would you maybe, take me out or get me into the steps of it? So,
Right.
There's definitely a desire for that out there, especially when they're talking like food shortages and stuff here this year, potentially, if it all shakes out with the COVID thing. I mean, I'm looking to pack a few on. My doe numbers look pretty good this year.
Yeah. Well, and I think you bring up something. I mean, it's not, don't worry about being politically correct on here because we're kind of just an open book. But I just had a similar conversation on another podcast I recorded with, I was telling you about Josh from the Western New York Land Conservancy. And, that's a lot of those conservancies, they have more of a liberal mindset.
Yep.
But they also see the scientific value in managing the herd and keeping it healthy, making sure there isn't over-browsing. So all of a sudden, it was a big topic of our conversation yesterday is, what's it like coming from his side of the fence? Because he's a new hunter. He's only been into hunting for 3 years.
Yep.
But he went to school, went to ESF, like he's into that, very scientifically minded. And the hunting thing, he has no issues with it. And to me, like we discussed, it's an olive branch.
Yep.
Most people, if you sit down and discuss with them, and the stats are out there, like most people, if hunting is done for food, they approve 92%. I think it's 92% is a number I've heard.
It's high.
It's overwhelming how high it is.
It's ridiculous how high it is.
As soon as you start throwing that T word in the effect, people get all freaked out and they start hugging the tree. And I love everything. Don't kill them.
Yep.
But it's that trophy is in the eye of the beholder. You can shoot a doe and that's your trophy. I love
100%.
shooting does. Every one of them, those back straps are trophies because they're delicious.
They all look the same in white paper.
They sure do. Yeah. Don't discriminate.
No, absolutely.
But I think you bring up a good point, and I guess I'm curious your opinion on it, and what your thoughts on what you're doing. And I'm sure you're making an impact with your Old Tin Cup and the video content you're creating. Is that we're the next generation coming up, and we have the ability now to lay the groundwork for the future and to be those references or those resources for the new hunters coming in. So I don't know, where's your head at? What are some of the things you're focused on doing, especially right now because we can't go out and have big gatherings and, interact with people.
Yeah, and there was actually supposed to be a big field day here coming up with the Rochester QDMA branch, and then I think the Chautauqua branch was going to have Matt Dye from Land and Legacy. He was going to hit a couple properties up here and piggyback that with a QDMA event. I think there's so much wealth in those QDMA field days as being part of them. And like I said, I mean, working on field days with like Jim Brockner, Eric Long, some of the big well-known habitat consulting kind of guys in the country at QDMA events, and just being able to pick each other's brain. And I don't mean the consultant, I mean other guys in the audience.
Yeah.
Because they might see something or do something, and that's what it could all be about. Even a newer first-time hunter coming to the table with it, they might bring a different perspective on the way to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
how many times
crazy.
have you been with a new hunter and they're like, you ever think about this? And you're like, no, I've never thought of that. That's not the way I was. Yeah. I was never brought up that way. It's not how I was taught. Haven't looked at it.
Yeah, no, and I'm always open to, trying or looking at or doing something different. And I think the more people we have in this sport, if you want to refer to it as that, it can only do nothing but make us better.
Yeah.
Especially if, like you said, people doing it for, the ethical right reasons. And I mean people that are doing it unethically and illegally. I mean that's a completely different conversation.
Yeah.
So,
but it takes, and I think I would change sport. I would change the word sport to lifestyle, because 100%. I think once you start hunting, you become a hunter, and then it becomes a lifestyle.
Right.
Because everything you do, everything you think about, and I think that happens with age too. When you're young, like I wasn't cerebral, like realizing what was going on and how I was a part of maintaining the land, or a part of keeping this deer population check, or helping keep this tree alive. Like you don't think about that stuff when you're younger.
Right.
But when you're 30 years old, or a mature, you're young. You're 24, 27.
Yep.
Okay. So yesterday I called a guy 30 and he was offended. Right. So there we go. See, I almost called you 24. You should feel good.
It's just a number.
It is. It is. What's yours? I'll show you mine.
Yeah.
But I just think we're in a really cool time right now, and I love what you're doing. I love that we're kind of in the middle of that. Like you and I never would have connected, and going to these field days or being on these Facebook groups, like you network and you connect. Yep. And there's a pile of people out there. There's people that I have no desire to interact with.
Yep.
But then, like, I see a guy like you who's hustling, and you're trying to put information out to help people.
Right.
Like you're trying to do things to benefit the greater good.
Yep.
And there needs to be more of that, And I think, keep doing what you're doing.
Well, I appreciate that.
You might get frustrated, or might, wish you were getting more. I know I wish I was reaching more people with a podcast, but it'll come.
Right.
If you stay consistent.
It's time.
In time. So just keep doing it, and the people that are supporting you, appreciate them, and it's good stuff, man. I think we're in a pretty cool time right now.
No, I do too, and I think you're gonna see the demographic shift, and I think it's almost gonna be like a night and day shift snap on the way it is, because everybody is with that locavore mindset or whatever, that they want to know where their food comes from. It's I guess I'll say this hush hush, but she probably won't listen to it. I have a cousin of mine who's a vegetarian unless it's venison I'm cooking.
Yeah.
That's it. She won't eat beef. She won't eat chicken. She won't eat nothing like that. But if she comes over here to have a cookout like she did a couple weeks back, she's like, throw out a couple steaks for me. And
I don't know about you, but I can totally jive with that.
Oh, 100%.
when you start to realize like some of the way that that meat is processed and the factory farming side of things, it's pretty disgusting.
Yep.
You know, I look at my son like he wants chicken nuggets,
Right.
and it's like, dude, you're eating freaking chicken lips and freaking assholes, and like it's gross. I tried to eat
beaks
one.
and butts, yeah.
Yeah, beaks and butts is right. So it's like, yeah, like as a vegetarian, a lot of times they're not vegetarian for any choice other than the fact that they think it's wrong the way that animals are treated in these giant farms.
Right.
So it's interesting. I mean, I was blown away. I'm from Wyoming County. We have huge, I think we're one of the heaviest populated dairy farm
it's big
areas
ag
in the
out
state.
there. Yeah, I had a lot of hogweed stuff out that way. Yep.
But there's not, I'll tell you what, I drove by a couple farms out here in, I don't know, that would be Cayuga County.
Yep.
Holy shit, the size of those dairy farms.
Got to be this day and age.
But, like, oh my God. I mean, just the pure size of that. And, you know,
and that's dairy in this region. It's not beef. It's
No,
not like
it's
down
dairy,
in
yeah.
the south where it's, Texas or whatever, and the, Midwest where it's, beef cattle, Nebraska, whatever.
yeah.
It's dairy up here, and it's world-renowned dairy up here.
Yeah.
Really, really good cows up in this area, 100%.
Yeah, it's a huge part of the lifestyle around here, but it is shocking to me to see, which I know it's the transition that's happening, is that a lot of your small-time family farms there's nobody coming up to take over, and you've got these giant farms that are buying up.
You gotta go big,
their,
or you can't make a living anymore
Yeah.
at it, and that's the unfortunate side of it. You got to be so big that you can't be small.
Right.
Literally.
Yeah, that's unless you got some nice little niche doing organic or something, and you got some little farmer's market you can purely sell
if it's
to.
just you and maybe one or two kids,
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
if
you
you're
don't have
trying
a
to
big
support
overhead.
an entire family on that, unfortunately, you can't do it in this day and age with costs and farming and everything.
Insurance, equipment, everything else.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Land costs. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
Utmost respect for farmers, 100%.
Yeah, it's not an easy life. So back on the QDMA stuff, just kind of wrapping around on that. So what do you? What's your role with the group here in the Northern Finger Lakes?
So I started the branch. That was about 2 years ago now, I guess. We had our first banquet. We had the highest net to gross in the Northeast, not just New York, the Northeast, and we had the highest ever gross for a first-time banquet.
Cool.
So we did very well with that. But I had a lot of knowledge from working with the Greater Rochester. I was the vice president. Bless you.
Corona. Sorry.
That's
it's not
all right.
funny. It's too soon.
Yep, too soon. But I was vice president with the Greater Rochester for a few years. So I was, and they have like the best gross in the entire Northeast.
Yeah.
So they bring in a lot of money.
What's his name?
Bob Rose.
Bob Rose. I feel terrible because we were supposed to connect with him back like last deer season, and we just never got together. But
yeah,
actually,
Bob's
not.
great.
It would have been after deer season because I wanted to help promote their banquet. Did their banquet happen this year?
They did. They squeaked it in right in front of.
It was like right before, right?
Yep.
Like the week before.
Yep. Right when stuff started really just kind of shutting doors.
Yep.
And it was one of them where they're just like, I think they still had 170 some people at it.
Yeah.
And no flare-ups in Monroe County, so
Everything's okay.
surprise.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to. That's the local chapter for me, I guess. I gotta go to one. I have so much fun at the NWTF banquets.
It's the same kind of gig, just with the deer.
Yep. It's all a lot of the same sort of stuff and how they process through the raffles and whatnot. But
Yep. The only changes you'll kind of see if you've been to QDMA banquets in the past is going to be a little bit less of like the branded merchandise and stuff like that, because there was so much overhead and costs with that.
Yep.
That they're going to shift away from that, going less with the banquet side of that stuff and more sponsorships with like, an outdoor company or something like
Rifle
that, getting a price
companies
point break or whatever for buying product for
That's
it rather
smart,
than branded stuff.
right.
So, and again, it's cutting costs and helping the organization be more streamlined and spending membership dollars in better ways as well, I believe.
Yeah.
So
with what does it cost to be a member of QDMA?
it's $35 last time I checked.
Yeah.
I haven't had to check because I got my lifetime about 5 years ago. So
Did you? What'd you get for that? Something cool?
yeah, they give you a koozie and a hat, and actually they'll send you a free replacement hat if you get it sweaty enough and put enough dirt stains on it.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's funny.
But no, I guess all my QDMA stuff's going to be vintage whenever they announce the new name here pretty soon.
It'll be worth something. You may get your money back on your lifetime membership.
Yeah.
But
no, and it was one of those things where it made sense, and I still go, and you still have your membership fee that, usually you can gift that to another hunter. Say you were a life member, or, every QDMA event you go to has a baseline cost, but because of that, it extends your membership out a year. And a lot of guys don't know that. Like, when I bought my lifetime, I had like 8 years added up or something like that. And they didn't like back credit me that, and I don't care about it. But that's one of the cool things about it is you go to a banquet, there's a membership cost included in that. So you increase your membership. You go to a field day, same thing. And a lot of times it's at a reduced rate for current members. So
Yeah.
But the field days is what I love doing. And that's what the branch really wanted to do and liked doing as well. So, but the banquet is definitely going to be something that we're going to keep because people love banquets.
And it's that time to network. I mean, there's people when I go to the NWTF ones. I mean, I see people at those I only see once a year. You know? So it's that networking opportunity, and it's definitely a good place to go and a good time to do that. So I talked about this I did a podcast with Glenn from BHA I was telling you about, which when this posts that'll already be out. But if you're into hunting or fishing or the outdoors at all, like you could be a member to all these different organizations that we've talked about over the last several podcasts that people are aware of, or just pick the one that makes the most sense to you. If you're passionate about deer and you're passionate about deer hunting in your area, QDMA is the one for you. If you're passionate about public land and keeping all that stuff, if you're passionate about all that, for $150 you could be a member of all these organizations every year and be making an impact.
Yeah, locally. should have a package deal.
Yeah, they should. Maybe they will
come all together as one and split the dollars evenly, of course.
Yeah.
But
that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Try to sell that idea up the fence.
Yeah, everybody's gonna want a bigger chunk of the pie, unfortunately, when you get higher up sometimes. But
no doubt.
But, yeah.
So enough about all the business side of things. I want to know a little bit about. I know the picture that I'm familiar with, the view. You shot a nice buck a few years ago, so I'm kind of curious a little bit of the backstory of that. You know what I'm talking about? Where you had the sheds.
Oh, Outlaw is actually probably one of my favorite up and down stories I've ever had for a deer. But yeah, I just, it doesn't matter if that deer, and this is my personal thing. I'm not trying to promote you got to shoot mature bucks, you got to shoot whatever. If it's your tag, if it's legal, ethical, you're in the right to do it. 100%. It's your tag, your choice, in my opinion. I never try to say I'm forcing it on it. Now, I will admit that in my youth I was a bit of a freaking knucklehead.
Yeah, we all were.
People. Oh my gosh.
Don't worry about it.
That was horrible. But Outlaw was a funny story, and this goes kind of into some of the stuff I've been watching a lot more of lately too. Is I actually shot him. Okay, rewind, fast forward. It was early October. I was sitting in a cold front. I shot a buck. 8-ball is what I called him. He was a big 8, but he was a 10 that year. I shot him with an expandable broadhead, and that's kind of where this whole story starts, and then you'll see the whole progression. It's just a good story as a whole. I shot 8-ball, shot him on video, and you hear it on the video. It just sounds like a smack. And I was like, well, and so I tracked him up. Didn't end up recovering him, called in deer search, everything like that. But he disappeared off cameras, and that was one of the home body bucks, was 8-ball. He was there every day, all day. 365. So I didn't end up finding him, after I shot him. But I was getting ready to hang my bow up. I threw my expandables right in the trash bin. I put an old Muzzy on, and, looking back on it, it wasn't even sharp, it was just an old Muzzy I had laying around for who knows how many years old it was. I threw that on, and the next week, it was like a week later, same thing kind of peaked and then dropped that year with temperature. And I sat same stand I shot 8-ball out of. I sat it again, and then I saw Outlaw. Didn't think it was Outlaw. I thought it was a different 10-pointer. We had a camera. He came down the ridge. I grunted to him. He dropped down in the bottom, came right in front of me, gave me a good shot. Shot him on video too. Problem was, he kind of turned into the shot, and I caught him a little low forward, and it ended up coming out, I found out, underneath his neck on the one side. Tracked that deer forever. Couple things I learned from that. I jumped right on the track job with not really sure where I hit. It looked good on the little camera viewer screen, but
right. Was he close? The shot close?
He's 28. So not horribly far, but not the closest either.
Yeah.
28, but I stopped him and I alerted him too. So I mean, as soon as you can watch the video. As soon as I shot, he ducked and kind of turned right away from it. So
Yep.
a shot that in a lot of ways would have been perfect, and a lot of guys see this with them jumping the string. And I've moved to more of not stopping my deer when I shoot them, is waiting for them to stop naturally with their head up for whatever reason. Especially mature bucks, you can get away with it a lot with that because they're always looking. It's ridiculous. If you watch does and stuff like that, like they'll only stop when they're chewing.
Mm-hmm.
Or unless she's got something
Or if
she
they're
doesn't think
alerted
is
to something,
or something's not right. But that mature buck, he's always on alert with stuff, and that's what I've noticed. So I track him forever, almost get a shot at him in his bed, but bump him, chase him all over heck. Fast forward to the day before gun season now. I didn't end up finding him. I had another buck come through, had a huge breeding party, and this is still something that was crazy. Light falling snow that day. I actually shot another buck, T-boned that one in the shoulder. It was a horrible year that year.
Yeah.
And T-boned that buck in the shoulder, and as I was tracking that buck, he was running around with I think there was 11 different bucks and 4 does. It was just a huge breeding party coming in to that
That's
bottom.
wild.
Same bottom that I shot both those bucks out of.
Hmm.
It's a killer spot. But anyway, so I T-boned that buck in the shoulder. Didn't end up killing him. The neighbor killed that one 3 days later when gun season opened up. My broadhead was buried right in the top of the scapula, perfect.
Huh.
But no penetration on it. Shooting a super light arrow, probably way too dull a broadhead. And anyway, so shed season. I found outlaw sheds. Found 8-ball dead. So 8-ball's downstairs too, in the office. And I found outlaw sheds, and I said, well, he made it through season long enough to drop his sheds. And so fast forward into, what would that be, 2018, because last year was 19. Yeah, 2018 season. He started showing up on camera pretty regular, especially into early October. He wasn't a deer that lived on the farm. He was one of them that he came in, like I said, late September. Actually, he came in second week October. He was never on the farm in Velvet. But I started getting pictures of him, and I shot a couple does early on. Got into sharpening my broadheads and on the muzzies, switching out my blades.
Mm-hmm.
And actually went back to dirt nap broadheads, which is what I still shoot, but you got to put a nice edge on them. They don't come with the greatest edge. You got to sharpen them up a bit. He came in, and my uncle was in town, and dogging a doe. Well, not dogging a doe. Doe was in front of me. I wanted to shoot the doe. Texted my uncle, hey, you want to go on a blood trail? I'm going to shoot this doe. Nah. He's like, nah, I don't want to. I got to get back to, because he was living in New Hampshire at the time. He's like, I got to get back on the road. Okay. So I literally put my phone down, and I'm watching this doe and this fawn in front of me eating a couple acorns, and it's November 4th. And I look kind of over my shoulder because I heard a stick break. And here's Outlaw coming right down the ridge. I mean, and he's right on top of me. I'm just bow's hanging up. Phone's in my lap, not even in my pocket. I'm just okay. And so he's just working right along. He's stopping, he's looking, working right along. And he gets kind of behind this tree that I actually had to take the stand out of because the tree's going to come down. It's a big ash tree. It's getting cut here in the next timber harvest because of ash borers, unfortunately. So that tree's seen its last deer. But I pick my bow up. He gets around the tree. And as soon as I get my bow off the hook, that doe pins me right in the tree. I'm like, and I see her at the corner of my eye. I'm looking at him. He's got no idea what's going on in the world. He's not all rutted up stupid, but he kind of just, he's moseying over to her. So I finally get my arm up, and the fawn's underneath me, underneath the stand. I clip up, and he's right at that doe, and she stomps twice. And the fawn just blows out, goes stupid. And he just he's looking around he puts his head down toward her, and I'm just okay, I guess this is going to be it. And I got clipped up, and and I remember saying it, I was just nudge her, just nudge her. And he put that head right down, and he took 2 of those steps, and she kind of skirted out, and I drew. And of course, he stopped right in front of a maple tree about 3 inches around, was right over the top of the pocket. And I'm and he's only 7, maybe 8 yards, right there. I'm at full draw right on him. And I'm just one step. And he takes one step, puts his nose right down where she was standing, and And so he runs down to the bottom of the hill, and like I said, I knew what deer it was. Runs right down the bottom of the hill, and he literally looks back up the hill in the tree at me. And I wish I had it on video because it was just priceless. He looks right up in the tree at me, and I'm like, did I miss him? Like, I don't know what just happened. And then he just goes, and blood just blows out both sides. Runs about another 5 yards, and he does like 2 somersaults. And I was just like, he didn't even know he was freaking hit. And he, like I said, looked right back up in the tree at me, almost like a ha-ha. And like it was just like,
wow.
And
it was double lung, or?
Well, so that's the best part of the story. So I get him, call my dad, call my uncle, because I'm like, it's not a doe. You might want to come for this one. It's my best buck I've ever taken with the bow. He's like, oh, no kidding. So we get him, we're dressing him out there. And my cousin, who actually got him his first deer this year, was with me. And we were field dressing him out. Arrow broke off in the back shoulder when I hit him. And snapped
he was
off.
Quartering a little bit?
Quartering just a little bit, quartering away. And so that arrow got lodged right in and it actually went into that shoulder and actually was just sticking out about a half inch in the backside shoulder. So, I mean, textbook shot. But when I field dressed him out, and I was actually talking to a processor about this, and he actually was all on 1.5, I guess you'd call it, lungs. The side that I hit the year before had like shriveled up and sealed itself into the rib cage, and was like the back half of it was like sealed off. So
you would hit it in the lung,
single
one lung the year before.
One lung front low.
No shit.
And it was just like a swelled mass and kind of sucked to the rib cage.
That's wild.
And the processor was saying that when he's done deer in the past or cows, because he butchers beef cattle too, if they get pneumonia, you'll see them compartmentalize their lungs and it'll collapse and suck to the rib cage.
Wow.
So I hit him last year enough to get a lung, but you put it through both of them and right on top of the
That's wild.
artery on top of that heart, they're not going anywhere.
You hit him with the dull muzzy?
Yep,
right?
dull muzzy.
So that, if you had a sharp broadhead,
could have
probably would have, even just one lung might have done enough damage with a good cut.
Yep, and I've been watching a lot of Ranch Fairy stuff lately, and it makes you completely rethink your whole bow hunting setup.
I know.
But
right? I think the answer there is somewhere in the middle.
Somewhere in the middle, 100%. Yeah. No, but it all boils down to what shoots good out of your bow, just like I did on that last YouTube video about tuning my broadheads, is what shoots for your bow good and what's sharp. That's it.
Yep.
Whatever you can hit that spot with, know your effective range, and then have a sharp broadhead. You can kill them with a field point if it's the right shot, but that sharp broadhead, like you said, if it was a sharp broadhead, I might not have had the story with them either.
Yeah, that is a wild story.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you being real and telling the whole thing, because that's hunting. That's real. Everybody's had something like that happen, or is wounded deer or missed deer. If you just tell all the stories about all the victories and Super Bowls you won, there's some bullshit to be had there, because it's not you're killing. You're not out there target shooting. It doesn't always go as planned.
No, it's a living, breathing target.
Yep.
And again, live and learn. I mean, it completely has changed the way I hunt and shoot and everything. And I still try to talk my buddies out of shooting expandable broadheads that call me every year to help them track deer that we don't find. And it works for some people. Don't get me wrong. There's guys that have a 100% success rate. So they say with expandables, but I'll be the first to tell you that I don't have a 100% success rate, and if you hunt long enough, you won't.
Yeah, almost everybody that has. I mean, you can have it happen with a fixed blade too, but I like for me, it's a mental thing, and I may have said this on the podcast before, but I'm confident with my setup that I don't have to try to avoid the shoulder. Mm-hmm. If that's my shot, if that's where I need to get to get through the shoulder or very close to the shoulder to get into those vitals, I don't want to have to worry about, is my arrow going to penetrate there.
Let alone if you snack a rib or something like that.
Well, ribs
you got to go right through that.
Ribs are the worst on expandables.
Deflect.
Yeah.
You get huge gash cuts and no penetration.
Yep. I mean, my brothers had it happen. I've never hit a buck in the shoulder because I haven't shot at enough bucks to hit him in the shoulder. Most of the bucks I shoot at, I just clean miss because I just blow the shot.
Right.
But my brother's, he's had a pile of bucks that he's hit in the shoulder, because that's where you're focusing. and that's where you end up hitting. And
Right.
if you don't hit that thing just right, that
It's-
broadhead is just going to bend right over and bounce off the deer.
Well, I'll show you the broadhead. I have the broadhead from when I shot 8-ball. That
Yeah.
expandable that just, it's, you
Yeah.
know, it's kind of a no-brainer once you have it happen. And don't get me wrong, I shot a couple deer with expandables where it's a whatever you want to call it. It's an
it's a hatchet
expandable,
wound.
it's an expandable broadhead, highlight reel.
Yeah.
But then you get the polar opposite. You never really have an in between. It's always kind of a feast or famine.
Yeah.
And the buck I shot last year, I shot him with a dirt nap too, sharpened up good, and I hit him. He didn't even know he was hit either. I hit him, and got back of one lung in the diaphragm. I didn't get both lungs, just one, but I got the diaphragm, so that's a fatal kill. That's almost as fast as a freaking aorta hit.
Yeah, you take the air out of
Yeah,
him.
and he jumped, and he kind of looked around, and he was dead before he even knew it. And he took 2 bounds back, and he just kind of started looking around, couldn't figure out what happened. Same thing, waited for his head to come up, looking, but not head down. And there's a great video by Grant Woods that shows that, and that's another good archery tip. Is head down, they're already preloaded into their shoulders, so you can get exponentially greater drop with their head down versus when that head's up, whether they're feeding or whether they're looking, not alert necessarily, but looking. The drop time, because they can't push that muscle down into those legs where it's already down, it's loaded, ready to go.
Right.
It's no different than you in a push-up. It's easier for you to hit the ground.
Yeah.
Same kind of idea.
No, it makes great sense. I never really thought about it
and
that
he
way.
didn't drop a bit. Actually ended up hitting him a little high because he didn't drop it all, on the shot because he was looking. And he didn't even know he was hit. He took 2 bounds, and then he just kind of looked around. I saw that tail just, then tipped right over.
And especially if you're, what are you running for arrow weight-wise?
It's over 500 with that 125 grain because the DRTs are cool, the dirt naps. And I'm not on staff for them or anything. I used to be, but you can resharpen them and they're good.
Yeah.
As long as you don't bang into shoulders and break the tip. But anyway, they have a modular weight system, they call it, that you could put an extra 25 grains on
the
it.
back of the.
Yep. So
Okay.
you could buy a 100 grain head. They do have 150s and 175s too, that if you want to go that way. But I've always liked the double bevel. I've shot some with a single bevel too. And it's funny that I actually think about it. I have never lost one with a dirt nap broadhead that I've shot. Knock on wood, because it's going to happen. But
Yeah. What about your arrow?
I run an FMJ, 10.9 grains per inch or whatever. So like I said, I'm over 500 grains. And then I think I get 25 grains for a lighted knock or whatnot. So not super high like FOC or whatever, but that's where my bow shoots. And with my target setup, when I shoot my foam leagues and stuff like that, 3D leagues, I shoot a 25, a 35, or 25, a 33, and a 37 with a 100 grain head. And this just works for my setup. It could be a little different for yours, or somebody else's. But then I put 125 grain on the head this year, which is brand new. I just started doing this about a week ago. And my 25 hits exactly at 20, and my 33 hits exactly at 30, and my 37 is 35. And I'm not shooting any farther than that. But it groups better with a broadhead. A heavier broadhead up front groups better. You would think that it drops it more or whatever. And yeah, once you get out past 30 yards, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't carry weight over
the curves
distance.
start.
Yeah.
Yeah. The energy and the weight, everything kind of starts crashing down. But most of your whitetail shots, people, let's be honest, you need to be focusing on stuff 30 yards and in, because deer can react.
Oh,
I mean, deer
100%.
can react on a 5-yard shot.
Yep.
On a 40-yard shot, it can happen.
Could
too.
be whatever.
People do
Forget
it.
it.
It happens, but it's not probably the best practice.
No, and I've shot deer at 40, a deer at 40, and the rest of them, I think the farthest has been 32 maybe.
Yeah.
But and that's right conditions, good angles, and that's just because that was when they gave me a good angle, or whatever it might have been. But
I like that's pretty cool hearing how that buck reacted that you shot last year, and the same thing with Outlaw, because I told the story, you might
does
have heard
too.
it.
Even does that I shoot, it's ridiculous. You
They
shoot
don't
them
know
with a
what hit 'em.
good cut-on contact, fixed blade head. There's not that TV buck across the hayfield reaction on them.
No.
I've never seen it.
No.
The only kind of exception to that is maybe if you stop them, and give them an alert to that. But if you're shooting them, through the natural movement, through like a travel corridor, eating acorns, whatever, something like that,
Yes.
and you shoot them with a fixed blade head, it goes right through them almost so quick. It don't matter.
The fixed blade head, I think a sharp fixed blade head with a moderately heavy arrow.
Mm-hmm.
I think those things all have to go together, because you could have a heavy arrow but a dull head.
Yep.
And you need that when you got those sharp broadheads and a heavy arrow behind it. Those things are slicing. I mean, the cuts are so clean, and it's devastating.
Yep.
But they don't have any clue what hit them.
Nope.
And it's really been the does I shot last year. They were so close, the shots, and just watching that whole thing unfold, it was just really cool.
Yep.
And it's the same thing you said. So that was kind of interesting that you experienced the same deal with your setup, because they like in one lungs, like one lung shots can typically turn into a complete rodeo.
Oh yeah.
I've been on many of them, even gun shots with one lung. But you hit them one lung with that arrow, and they don't know, it just happens, boom, smash right through them, and they don't know what the hell it was.
Yep.
The second they stop and that tail starts doing its little thing, they're in big, big trouble.
Yep. Yeah, and the other thing that I would say about the bow hunting tip or whatnot is obviously like Outlaw, and then when I shot Bud, a couple of the does and stuff like that. Those were all deer, like I said, I could go look at them or watch them drop or whatever, and that's the only time, and I will still stay on stand 45 minutes and watch that deer where it fell. Now, after doing the whole thing with Outlaw, with chasing them all over heck and going after them too quick, because like I said on video, it looked like, again, it's that everybody sees it on TV, thinks that's a reality all the time, and it's just not.
No.
Unless you watch them drop, it's 2 hours.
Yeah.
You got nothing but time. He's still going to be there. He's not going to get any more dead if he's already dead.
No.
So, and, might Outlaw have laid right up and clotted up and died? He might have, if I didn't push him right away. But on video, it looked like I smoked him.
Yeah.
But now it's, like I said, 45 minutes. If I see him drop, if I see him just kind of ease off, I'll, give him 2 hours or whatnot. Depends on how confident I am with the shot. And then, case in point, too, I had a neighbor that shot one this year and know he hit him far back, and I could smell the liver on the arrow. So we're going to let him go overnight. He's like, I want to give him 4 hours and go. I said, we're going to give him overnight. I said, it's not going to spoil.
Yeah.
It's going to be 35 tonight. He'll be fine. Coyotes found him overnight. You can't control that. But he died right in his first bed. About 180 yards from the stand, bedded right up, and that's where we found him the next morning.
Yeah.
Just got to know your shot and shoot a sharp broadhead.
I think that's a good place to leave it there.
100%.
Shoot a sharp broadhead. Know your setup. Use a local pro shop that knows what they're doing. If you don't, and even if you do think you do know, go use them as a reference to help guide you in what you're doing.
Yep.
And you're the one that turned me on ultimately to Heritage. So
yeah,
I appreciate you doing that, because they're right around the corner from you here, and they're awesome people. I really enjoyed sitting down to meet them, and I'm going to get over there here in the next month to do a little training session with Mike and try to get myself to the next level shooting wise. And
yeah, no, Mike will pick you right apart.
Yeah,
and he'll be honestly picking you apart too.
Yeah, and I respond well to that. Me personally, I need criticism. I need to understand where I can improve. So I'm looking for it. And I got the vibe from him that he's not going to sugarcoat it. He's going to tell you what's going on.
Yep.
I know I've got issues, but I need somebody who knows how to fix those issues to tell me what to do.
And he'll break it right down with the cameras, everything like that. I mean, you saw the setup. So,
yeah, it's a pretty sweet setup.
Yep.
So wrapping it up, anything you got in closing that you want to plug or?
I'm not a big self promoter. I don't know. I try to just share information around. It's never really about my business. It's just kind of to try to get more information out is what it is. Because the clients are going to come whether I advertise or not, word of mouth, stuff like that. So I'm not out there to make money or make clients with it. I'm not. The education's always been on the front with it. So.
Yeah. Well, I'll plug for you.
Okay.
You check out Old Tin Cup and Ben Williams on Instagram and Facebook. You're pretty easy to find with your names. And, appreciate what you're doing with the QDMA chapter here, and keep up the good work, and look forward to seeing what the future has to bring with that once we get the other side of the new naming of the new organization and the other side of COVID. So have a good season, man. I appreciate you having me out here to your house and getting to know you a little bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you're welcome to do the next one at the farm or whatever if you want to do like an in the field day or something. Yeah. Whatever, man.
Well, I don't plan on doing this for just 1 year, so I can't burn
absolutely.
up all my good.
Well, that's true too. You got to keep topics.
Yeah. But it's fun. I'm doing a lot of the same thing you're doing. I'm trying to keep it relative to the time of year and what people are thinking about. So, we'll definitely had a fun time this spring. I thought I was going to do more with fishing, but it was like all of a sudden you're already into May and June, and it's like, well, I like to fish, but I'm thinking more about deer, and I think other people are too. So, I might be missing the boat there, but no pun intended. But yeah. So thanks again, man. It's nice getting to know you and sitting down and chatting with you. So
Absolutely.
see you later.
See you.
Thanks for the beer, by the way.
Yeah, no
Delicious.
problem.